Good evening, I'm DK Roster. Welcome back to the TTT News. Budget matters, and we want to know what it means for your pocket. We're actually speaking on the topic of education this evening. With that in mind, we have Mrs. Keisha Welcome-Guevara. She is an education consultant. We also have Penelope Spencer, who is on the board of directors for Necessary Arts. Very busy ladies. We thank you so much for slotting us into your schedule. But ladies, we want to start off finding out what are some of the gaps that you observed that led you to form or be part of the companies that you are in. And we start with you, please, Keisha.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Ruston, for being here this evening. In 2009, I met with a few parents who were having concerns about their children and their reading deficits. They were concerned that their children weren't reading the way they should have. And at that time, I decided to do a little bit of investigation to find out how many other parents within my community were having that feeling. And I was shocked to find out that quite a number of parents, that's what, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, were having an issue with their children and their reading ability. So what I started to do then was to offer schools the opportunity to refer children to me who would have needed reading intervention at some degree. That was 2009. Today, I work with children, not just with reading deficits, but children with special needs generally. And what we've noticed is that there is a huge gap in the system for providing for these children the education that is commensurate with what they need. And from simply giving reading classes in my apartment, I now run a full center for children from dyslexia straight through to autism spectrum disorder.
Scaling up from your apartment to a full center. We'll talk about that process of scaling up in just a bit, but we want to bring you in, please, Penelope. Why the Necessary Arts? What is the purpose of the Necessary Arts?
Well, Naima Thompson came to Trinidad. She came back home to Trinidad because she had started Necessary Arts in the States prior to 2002. She came back to Trinidad in 2002 and opened up this school here in Trinidad because she felt that there was a need for children to come together and celebrate the arts. Also, there was also a lot of children being at home alone. We call the latchkey children. They were home alone after school because parents didn't come home on time or parents were still at work. So we were saying we'd have this institution where kids could come here and do a little arts, whether it be dance, we had drama, we had pan, we had music, we had batik. We had all kind of different forms of art, visual and performing. And so that was the need for Necessary Arts. And when Naima Thompson and Lydia Leisurewood, the founder, the two before me, they asked me to join the school because they wanted a teacher to deal with the younger ones. So when they asked me to come in, I was so overjoyed because this is exactly my kind of thing. Because there were a lot of kids didn't have a place where they could go and express themselves, and sometimes some of the schools were too expensive to go to, and so what we used to apply for the government to help us to get a subvention to get children in here from the homes. So we had children from the homes, and then we had children from the normal schools. So they would come together here in the evening, and that's how I got into Necessary Arts. I came here as a arts teacher, and I've been here ever since. And they gone and left me, actually.
I like the fact that you talk about an inverted commas normal school.
I know, yes.
No,
the ones that they say. Yes.
No, well, my question to you now, I don't know what is normal, what is new normal, what is abnormal, but with regard to education, what do you see now?
No, I'm talking about the regular school where children don't have to you know, but not non-at-risk schools. Let's just say so, because we had a lot of at-risk kids coming here from the homes, and then we had children from the regular schools.
Yes,
So
yes.
it was regular is a better word.
All right. Normally I say traditional sometimes and hope that catches all. But Keisha here is saying yes, yes. But ladies, what do you think to you? And I'll start with you, thank Keisha, in terms of the status of education right now during the pandemic. And I ask you in the context of me looking at Quace and seeing that you all pivoted so that you all were able to allow or afford online learning since April.
Interestingly, before I answer you, I met Penelope Spencer, she might remember, when I worked at St. Dominic's Children's Home. We did a placement with, I was the social welfare officer then, and we sent numerous children to your program because I believe in the arts, I see the benefit of it, lifting the confidence in children and so forth. So you all have been doing an excellent job as far as I can remember. Anyway, back to your question. Where it stands now, the reality, DK, is that online is there and it's operating. Remote is there and it's operating. Some children are benefiting, but some children, in fact, many children are not, as far as I've seen it. And I stood up in the grocery line just yesterday and I heard two teachers conversing about how difficult it was to access their parents. Accessibility is a big issue in this current education during the pandemic phase that we are in Trinidad and Tobago and the world. You know, many children don't have access to the internet. Their parents may have a cell phone, but the reality about that mobile unit is it may not be a unit that can easily access the internet. And even if they could, they may get internet when they're out and about, but when they're at home, they don't have access to internet. Other parents can't even afford the top up. And so teachers are trying to call them and they're not being able to answer the phone. So that's one thing, just the accessibility. Another issue is on meal programs. The reality in Trinidad and Tobago that a large cross-section of our population access breakfast and lunch via the school feeding program. Many children are not having that breakfast and lunch these days, so we're having issues with malnutrition. We will eventually have a lot of issues with malnutrition, so it's starting, and with parents not earning, not all, but there are parents who are fortunate to be earning, but there are a lot of parents who aren't, and really rely on the school feeding program for their children to eat. So that's another big issue in this pandemic. A third one, which affects me a lot because, as you know, I work with children in the area of special needs, is the lack of recreational and socialization time. We could still WhatsApp or message a neighbor. We could still stand up across the wall and shout the neighbor out. We could still pass by the bar and buy a beer and carry it home and wave to our friends, but our children are not afforded that opportunity. And I have one more point with regards to education and the pandemic, but I want to leave it for later on. So I think those are the three major issues. And I definitely feel as if the Ministry of Education in quick time needs to identify the children who are not able to access meals, not able to access Wi-Fi, not even able to get to the school and pick up the package because Miss can't reach them on the phone. Those are some of the serious issues. You have a lot of children home with other children because daycares are closed. And there are no aunts or uncles or grannies to find. So an older sibling, a 10-year-old, may be home with a 4-year-old, and so because the parent needs to go out to work. So that's some of what I've been seeing. Even though some of my children are able to come out, I probably have about 1/3 of my regular population being able to access the education online. Most of the parents aren't able to.
And we'll see if Penelope shares similar sentiments. When we return, we
Definitely.
take a short break. We come back, we're speaking with Keisha Welcome-Guevara and Penelope Spencer. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are speaking about education and also what we're kind of looking forward to in the budget for education. We're speaking with Keisha Welcome-Guevara as well as Penelope Spencer. And Penelope, we start back with you. Thank you. Talking about the status of education as you see it now during this pandemic.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with all that Keisha said, and it's horrible. And what I was thinking about is the arts and, you know, and the PE and singing and dancing. All these things were taken away from the school curriculum with the COVID because the teachers are hardly getting to get their stuff off the table. So to bring us in is apparently might be a little problem. And I'm really hoping that schools find a way to incorporate the singing and the dancing and what the PE, physical education, whatever extracurricular activities the children need. They need to get back into that phase. What I was hoping is that, you know, most primary schools, let's say the standard 5 is out, that they would bring in the classes once a week into the school, you know, and hire more assistant teachers. Hire more assistant teachers so they could survey, look at the classes while one teacher is in a classroom, or 3. But I think there's a way we could do this, bring the children back to the classroom, bring them back to the schools, hire more junior teachers to see over the classes, spread the one class, all the standard 3s or the 4s or whatever class right through the whole school, separate them, understand social distancing. For break times, bring down some monitors so they could look at the kids and let them understand social distancing, you know, but they should bring back the children into the classroom, into the schools, I think. If it's just one day a week,
and
you know,
looking
and
at
that one day
and I see you speaking about the fact that that interaction is such an important energy to help foster that kind of holistic individual, and that brings me to performance-based learning strategies that Necessary Arts put such a primacy of place in. And I actually want to introduce a SOT. I call it drama, but just in terms of looking at how we're able to use performance and bring it into in fostering education. We play that now when we come back.
I used this drama therapy strategy of the body line, and I learned that one of my students was feeling really pressured and stressed, and he was able to express those emotions in this diagram. And then we learned that this can actually be used in other classes such as psychology. We looked at biology, economics, math, PE, and they discovered that this makes learning much more exciting and effective. I used this drama therapy strategy of the body.
So some people might think it's just drama and it's different to education, but using that performative aspect to have education take place, and sometimes without even knowing, I appreciate it as well. But with that in mind, how can we get creative, and what are some of the things that you would like to see the budget address as regards education? And well, I'll start off with you, Penelope.
Well, one of the things that is, just to go back to Necessary Arts, our one motto is stimulating minds through artistic expression. And I love that expression, that motto, because that is, to me, you know, says it all. And that's how we could stimulate our young people's mind, by the dance and the drama and the music, you know, and stimulating their mind, not necessarily for the arts alone. You know, you wouldn't believe that the way a child might dance or sing out can engage her more in the academics, you know. And I wish that the budget could make this happen, you know, involve the artistic schools more into the traditional schools, you know, make arts more part of the curriculum. I'm fortunate that I work with schools like Newton Girls and St. Ursula's that make storytelling and drama a part of the school. And I know right now the teacher is trying to make it happen again. but it is important for that a child to be as all-round as possible. And it could be so fulfilling for that child. So I'm really hoping that the education minister, the culture minister and tourism, you know, really find a way that we could marry the two, the arts and the education.
And to affirm that point even more, I remember some of those radio programs that I would have heard in primary school, and so they're talking about carbohydrates, and I still remember that rice and roti will make you go. But Keisha, I want to involve you here though and ask you, what are some of the things you want the budget to address with regard to education?
Yes, well, I agree with the arts, and as you know, it's part of what we do. And in addition, I would like to see a stronger focus on special needs. I believe our special needs children have not been getting a strong enough enough allocation in the budget. In fact, I don't think enough money is being spent towards education on a whole, and more so in the area of special needs. One of the areas that I think needs to be addressed is that issue of assessment. Students coming into the primary schools may be displaying a number of different signs with regards to learning disability or developmental disability. And a lot of times these children go unnoticed, or the teacher would say, yes, something had to write with that child, you know, but it would not be formally assessed. And because the child, yes, would not have received the assessment, they're not, you know, they're not dealt with, their issues are not targeted. So money needs to be allocated towards assessment and early assessment. I'm talking about second year, standard one, and it must be universal. Parents should not have to find $5,000 and $6,000 to pay a psychologist to get an assessment done, which is our reality in Trinidad and Tobago for the most part. Money needs to be allocated to hire more staff, as Penelope would have mentioned, more people to teach the arts, theater, and so happens a lot in secondary school, but not as much in early childhood or in primary school. You may have a teacher knowing a little bit of dance or a little bit of drama, but it's not necessarily formally taught, my bad, edit that out. It's not formally taught, and because it isn't formally taught, the children's understanding of the arts may be dissected. So I think definitely we need to put more money in towards hiring staff. More money needs to be allocated towards a special child grant. Currently, parents get $1,500 a month. It's not enough for a parent who has to pay for an occupational therapist, speech therapist, needs to pay for, you just showed a video on drama or dance therapy, not enough to cover those, which range to about $300 to $400 a session. I think that needs to be increased, and the accessibility needs to be expanded, not just to children who might be identified as severely having that particular issue, maybe autism spectrum, a severe child. No, it should be all children who fall into the category of special needs. And because of the fact that 15% of our population, based on international best practice, the statistics shows at least 15% of your population, whether you're in traditional schools or not, would have some challenge, some disability. And if that's 15%, that's huge. So
and then speaking of having challenges though, one of the challenges that we have at this point is time. So ladies, we're going to try to do this again, and we'll even do it on a singular basis because it's a lot to deal with, but we want to thank you for starting the conversation. Both you, Keisha Welcome-Guevara, as well as Penelope Spencer. On behalf of the entire news team, I'm DK Roster. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.